Dr. Vigneshwaran.
Hello, madam.
I think we can start. There are more than 20 people now, and people would be joining.
Okay. Oh, sure. Yeah.
Welcome to the afternoon session, the final session on Introduction to Permission Blockchains. I invite Dr. Vigneshwaran to start the lecture.
Okay, thank you. I hope my screen is visible and you are able to hear me, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. Fine. So we stopped at this place. We just had a small use case with water packaged water can supplier and the shopkeepers. So now the additional requirements comes, right? The privacy related requirements. So similarly, there are some other technical challenges. One is privacy, and we will see some more challenges here. So there are some technical and as well as non-technical challenges. We start with the technical challenges. So performance and scalability is one of the immediate thing we can notice. So when the number of transactions per second, if you take a database, if it is in thousands or lakhs per second, but in coming to blockchain, it depends upon different blockchains, anywhere between tens or hundreds to hundreds, thousands itself is a huge number to have in blockchain. I mean, current according to the current situation. And there are some blockchains they claim more with some specific infrastructure. But if you take a particular infrastructure, the amount of the performance or efficiency what we get when compared to centralized our conventional database, it's far low when we do it on a blockchain. So that we need to be aware of when choosing a solution whether to use blockchain or not. And related to that, scalability. So the horizontal scalability, those things are not supported in blockchain, in the sense that if you add more peers, it doesn't add to the scalability. It involves it is actually making it more complex. The consensus need to happen within more number of peers. So that way the scalability is also a issue. So as we can see previously, even in centralized database, a simple insert now becomes a smart contract execution, and the result coming back and forth, and consensus is achieved. So multiple parts are there, right? Multiple steps are there. So automatically that is not performance efficient. And coming to consensus, there are several consensus methods, and we know that in Bitcoin it is a proof of work kind of consensus. In Ethereum, proof of work and proof of stake kind of consensus. So all public systems are having very inefficient consensus because they are lottery based. So they need to solve something very difficult, and whoever wins, they will get the hold on the get the permission to create the block. So that way it is and even if we take permission blockchain also, still consensus need to talk to multiple people, that depending upon the consensus mechanism, the efficiency problem is there. And we need to choose from different consensus, like whether we need only to tolerate crash fault. That means there is no malicious activity, just the system went wrong or some hardware failure. Due to that, if system fails, how many system failure we need to consider or tolerate, so before the entire blockchain network breaks down. So if we have 3, means maybe one crash fault we can tolerate. So something like that we need to see. And Bayesian and fault tolerance come into picture when our threat model includes that some of the peers may be malicious, so they can do some activity which is handcrafted messages they can try to inject, or they can modify their peer program, and they can send wrong endorsements and something like that, and their behavior may be arbitrary. It is not like always sending wrong information. It is like sometimes they give correct information, sometimes they give wrong information. So that kind of time we can go for Bayesian and fault tolerant algorithms. So that kind of thing, challenges are there. Then coming to user privacy and transaction confidentiality. So keeping user information and transaction data private in a shared ledger is a challenge. So blockchain is a shared ledger. It achieves transparency and things like that. That is the advantage side. But on the other hand, just now we saw the privacy requirements, right? In the sample scenario. So similarly, ensuring privacy in the shared ledger is a difficult thing, challenging thing. We will see what kind of research is going on in the forthcoming slides, but as of now, it's a challenge only. And coming to the interoperability, right now there is no standard for blockchain. There is no thing called this is what blockchain. So no standard. It's evolving, but no standard. So due to that, every platform works in a different mechanism. So if you take Hyperledger Fabric, Corda, or any system, everybody have their own ledger format, their own methodology, and things like that, architecture. So the interoperability is at stake right now. There is no, if you take, there is no formal interoperability things. There are researches again, interledger protocol and things are there, but still it is not as smooth as like databases, and there the standards are not there. Then moving one asset from another thing. So we were thinking about tracking assets, currencies, and things like that. But when we want to move a currency or asset from one blockchain network to another network, there is some issues, right? We don't know whether this network is trusted, whether the asset, whatever they are talking about, is a valid asset, or they simply created and they are trying to transfer here. So the authenticity and things like that we need to take care. That is a problem. Then data migration also another issue. Data migration in the sense, when a platform itself is the version is increasing, so we want to deploy a new version of platform. If it is compatible with the old things and the data structure, then no issues. Just in case it's a major revision, if it is not actually compatible with the previous version, then we have to migrate the existing things to the new thing, right? So these are all the things we need to support when we are really into business or some supporting some customer. For our purposes, maybe we will simply, if the data is not important, we can simply discard and we can install and go ahead with the new version. But in case we are supporting some customer, some important data is there in the existing version, migration will be very important. And coming to query efficiency, so complex queries are not supported when compared to RDBMS, and world state stored as key value pairs. So in Hyperledger Fabric, if you take, there are two components in blockchain. If you see, core blockchain will be there, where the transaction records will be stacked like transaction history. So if you want to know the balance, usually in Bitcoin and things like that, what are all the transaction which has an output which is not consumed yet. So we need to collate everything, and we need to see the unified view of the over amount we have. A particular account has that amount. So, but in Hyperledger Fabric kind of account model, what we have is additionally one more data structure will be maintained. It is like the index kind of thing. The top level, what is the balance? The account will be there. So that account is stored as key value pairs. Okay, whatever key we want, we can have multiple states. Whatever states we want to maintain, account balance can be a state. Similarly, whatever information, address, everything, we can keep it as key value pairs. So key value pair by design is not very efficient for queries. We can't do very complex select statements and things like that, or table joins kind of thing. Those are not possible in blockchain. Then key management. So here there is no username password kind of thing for submitting transactions to blockchain. So the keys all are based on private key, public key. So private key should be used for signing the transaction and submitting it to the blockchain. So that keys should be maintained properly by the user. If the user misses the key or somebody gets hold of it, they can create transactions on behalf of impersonating the user, and they can transfer the money to whoever they want. So that kind of issues are there. So when compared to username and password, that can be if the user is actually remembering that and not writing anywhere, then it's almost safe, right? But key we can't remember. Key will be a very lengthy byte string, so they have to store it in a file. So that way it is little bit difficult to manage unless they store it very securely in their computer and mobile. If we take corporate, they are in a little better position. They can purchase separate hardware for storing keys and things like that, like HSM hardware security module, and they are there. But anyway, they are costly, and some researchers showed that a particular HSM was vulnerable to attack, and they extracted private key from HSM itself. So it is not also a bit of vulnerability is there. We can say it's not 100% secure. And when come to smart contract security again, um, we might have heard that in Ethereum several attacks happened, and Bitcoins also. For the DAO attack is a famous attack. So due to the vulnerability in the smart contract, what happens if one smart contract is tampered? That's a different story. But the smart contract itself has an inherent vulnerability, which can be exploited by suitably crafting a program, means a transaction with appropriate values. Then blockchain can't help it, because everybody independently execute the same input, and everybody will be affected by the vulnerability, and the outputs will be some unknown, uncertain things, right? So it will be a problem. But on the other hand, if the smart contract is trustworthy, but somebody tampered their own version of the smart contract, or whichever running in their peer, then others will be running proper. So as long as most of the parties, or majority of the parties, are honest and untampered, then fine. But vulnerability is a different story. It is exploited by the user. So user is sending some crafted messages, and vulnerability is exploited in all the peers. So we need to be very careful while deploying a smart contract into blockchain network, because once we deployed, it is hard to upgrade and things like that, right? Because multiple parties will be there. If we are making any change, patching and things like that, then we need to get approval from everyone on the code and things like that. It's not a centralized thing. Like OS update, if it's a Microsoft Windows, Microsoft can give you updates, people will accept it. Similarly, Linux means whatever Linux variant we are using, we accept the thing. But it's a peer-to-peer network, so people need to see what is changed, right? They can't arbitrarily accept it. And also, once the problem happens, it's very difficult to reverse the ill effect. So it may take a lot of effort, as well as sometimes they had to fork the network itself, the Ethereum network, that happened, right? So those kind of issues will be there. The price paid will be very huge in that case. So coming to the other next point, so okay, I forgot to tell one thing. So in query efficiency part, there is other aspect. Data archival also is a difficult thing in blockchain. When blockchain is keep growing, right? So for database, we can say that okay, after certain data, maybe we can archive some portion of it, and whenever needed, we can go and get it. But in blockchain, in order to verify the throughout the blockchain, if it is not tampered and things like that, we need to have from the origin of that, the first transaction. So similarly, data, so archival will be very difficult. Where, at what point we can cut, how to cut. So there are research going on. how to archive blockchain data and things like that, because we can't keep it growing, right? It will be difficult. So the data archival is another challenge. And coming to auditability, compliance with privacy and regulations, audit requires breaking of anonymity and unlinkability. So it's a kind of a privacy requires we should not reveal the identity of something. On the other hand, audit requires breaking of anonymity and unlinkability, right? So GDPR requires right to be forgotten. So GDPR says it should be private, and audit requires privacy to be broken. So how we can manage, how we can balance that also we need to see. So these are all kind of challenges, we can say. And coming to the next one, some of the non-technical challenges. Okay, until now we saw technically what are the challenges, but there are so many non-technical challenges also. When we need blockchain to be more efficient or more useful for a particular scenario, there should be multiple parties. If you take a transparency kind of thing, to avoid fraud, unless every bank is part of that network, the solution is not more effective, right? The leftover bank is still vulnerable, right? People can attack or make fraud with that bank, because these people whoever in the blockchain are safeguarded by sharing information. But the same invoice can be submitted to a bank which is not in the network, right? So bringing multiple parties is needed for success of blockchain based use cases. But it is hard to convince organizations, as the return on investment is not very clear. So in several cases, the initial banks have to invest all the things, right? Initial investment of developing the network and the smart contract need to be bear by the initial people. So no advantage for the first mover, only cost. And in some use cases, unless a complete set of organizations join the network, the goal can't be achieved. So as he said in the example, it needs multiple people, right? But always it is not happen as easily as we think. So that is a non-technical challenge. And data entry, so we are telling that data is tamper evident, it's very safe in blockchain, means integrity we can ensure and all those things. But at the entry point, if there is a mistake, then the wrong data gets into blockchain, right? We can't do much about it, blockchain can't do much about it. So data entry should be safeguarded very properly, or we need to be ensure that whatever enters into blockchain is correct, like that we should ensure. Otherwise blockchain as by itself can't do much about it. For example, use of IoT devices, we say several use cases telling that okay, using blockchain we can ensure that a shipment which needs to be which needs to maintain some degree of cooling for transport, like frozen food or like medicines. They want to keep some certain temperature. Any violation should be reported. So temperature at 4 degree or low. So how they monitor using IoT devices, right? Temperature sensors and things like that. But the thing is, if the temperature sensor itself is tampered or it's malfunctioning, we can't do much about it, right? So those kind of non-technical challenges outside blockchain, this comes outside blockchain. And necessity to join multiple networks. So what happens if there are multiple suppliers and they come up with their own blockchain based solution? Then the shopkeepers maybe need to join in multiple networks. Similarly, if a vendor is there, he is supplying things to several organizations and they have their own different individual network, independent network, then we have to join multiple networks, right? So these kind of issues are there. And joining network means the party may need to run peer, right? For every network he has to run one peer. So that kind of issues are there. And face by face adoption is difficult. So due to immutable nature, modifying data structures in a backward compatible way is difficult actually. Once we decided some data structure for the smart contract and the entire use case, modifying it, the earlier data is again a difficult thing. So phase by phase migration also is kind of difficult in blockchain. So various researches are going on. Some of the things are for performance and scalability. If we say people are trying blockchain sharding, where instead of every party involving in the consensus, a sharding group will be there, individual group will be there. So those group of people will verify it, then everyone commit it. That way they do, making use of cryptographic assurance of smart contract execution and reducing the number of endorsers. So in this case, what we can do is instead of every party executing the transaction, in Hyperledger case, all the peers independently execute, right? Why we are executing? Because we don't know whether the other party executed properly and the results they are giving is proper or not, right? So, but if we use this uh, some mathematical proof, if we can get for the execution itself, trusted execution if we can do, then we can say, okay, you execute and give me a proof that you have executed the proper program with proper input, then I will simply use it instead of I am re-executing it. So that kind of researches are going on. Then regarding consensus, the people are looking for lightweight consensus, maybe CPU intensive versus memory intensive. So to avoid CPU intensive proof of work kind of consensus, they are trying for memory intensive thing, which may be better when compared to power consumption and all. And using trusted computing as an alternative to consensus. Again, if the code is computed in a trusted fashion with a trusted hardware, maybe we don't have to do a round of consensus. We can accept it, something like that. If attestation is there, like Intel SGX, inside Intel SGX, if we run, and user privacy and transaction confidentiality. So anonymous transaction submission and unlinkability between multiple submissions. So how we can make it anonymous, even in the permissioned case, how we can do anonymous transaction, things like that. Or so unlinkable. So multiple transactions should not be linkable to a particular entity. So those things. And selective disclosure of transaction data. So even if some audit is coming, what is the minimal data needed from the entire transaction? Entire transaction may not be revealed, but only the needed portion can be revealed. Other portion can be revealed as a hash or something like that. They can do. So those kind of researchers are going on. Zero knowledge proof and things like that will come in this category. And interoperability related things, interledger protocols for moving assets between blockchains. So people are working on interoperability heavily. They are trying to come up with standards and all. So that research is going on. Query efficiency. So whether we can do some indexes to improve the efficiency. To some extent, they are able to improve. So that kind of research. And key management wise, banks handling users keys and submit transaction on behalf of them. So alternative to HSM, what kind of alternatives are there to HSM, or in order to improve the or to avoid the vulnerabilities of HSM, what else we can do? So those kind of things are going on. So people are already having multiple signatures, multi-sig, and they are trying more things to improve the efficiency. And smart contract security. So smart contract security is one of the very important thing, as we saw in the previous slides, right? DAO attack happened due to vulnerability in smart contract. So what kind of way we can ensure smart contract is very secure? So usual program testing, like static analysis and dynamic analysis, those things will be done. But in addition to that, is there anything unique we can do for a smart contract? Any specific thing we can do? So those kind of things, some platforms are even telling that we can formally verify it, the smart contract, and certify it. So those kind of things are there. And auditability and compliance point of view, using cryptographic methods and other platform specific tools like selective disclosure, partial data disclosure are being explored. So which data want to explore, expose, or only part of the data we can explore, expose, and these kind of methods are being explored. And so this is about flowchart this person has created, and our people have a little bit customized. So this diagram gives an overview of whether we need a blockchain or not based on some questions. By answering these questions, we can decide for a particular scenario whether we really need blockchain or not. If we need blockchain, what kind of blockchain we need, like that. So we start from here. So do you need to store state? Do we need something to store? So if nothing to store, then no need to go for blockchain, right? Anyway, it is a storage at last. And if yes, then are there multiple writers? Do we have multiple writers we want to write? For example, if you take some land titles kind of use case, land registry, everybody may not write into the ledger, right? Only the authorities will write into the ledger. So yeah, we don't have multiple writers. No, let us take this path. No. So then again, another question: do we have any critical data need to be tamper evident? For example, insider thread. There can be insider thread, so that if you store the data in a database, somebody can actually tamper it. So that kind of possibilities are there. Is there anything like that? So that is this question. So if that is also not there, we don't have multiple writers, we have only single writer, and the data is not very critical, we tamper evidence is not needed, then we don't use blockchain. We can simply go for database itself. But if the data is actually critical, like data of land registration records, or the one organ donation kind of list, or the the employment exchange kind of scenario, then we need to see further. Okay, critical data, then we will see, is the data public verifiability required? Public need to verify the data, is it required in that data? If it is yes, for example, land titles, if you take, authorities only will write, but it's a critical data, and also public may need to verify it, right? They need to see currently who is owning, any encumbrance related problems are there. So these kind of things need public verifiability, right? So then we can go for public permission blockchain. Why permission? Because the writing should be done by a particular people, right? A group of set of people. And public, it's public because publicly readable, and permission for a specific right operation. So this is publicly verifiable is required. But if we don't want a public verifiability, for example, other specific use cases like organ donation, employment exchange, there public may not be directly need to verify it. So in that case, private permission blockchain is okay. We can go with a private permission blockchain, whoever the users of that blockchain who can read and verify it. So this is this path. Means there are only single writer, but need critical data. But when there are multiple writers, multiple people want to write into it, then we will further ask the question: are all the writers known, everybody known? If you take a Bitcoin kind of scenario, every miner, there will be multiple miners, everybody will try to add their block into the blockchain, right? So but they are not known to each other, they are arbitrary people. So if we don't know, then we can go for permissionless blockchain, because we don't know the all the writers. But if we know all the writers, means in the ecosystem, who are all the participants we know, and all the writers we know, suppliers, and these kind of scenarios, then we are asking next question: are all the writers trusted? In the sense that if it is within a company, for example, multiple departments, a college, university, multiple departments, between multiple departments, all are trusted, right? All comes under the same university. So in that case, if all are trusted, then don't use blockchain, because in that case the university or the higher authority, those people are good in a good position to host a centralized database based solution that will be far more efficient. So then go with the database. But if the writers are not trusted between multiple different companies, so we can't trust the other company, right? Then again we are asking the same question, whether public verifiability required. If it is yes, then public permission blockchain. If it is no, then it is within multiple organizations but not public. So that case, permission blockchain we can go with. So this will actually give help us to decide whether we need a blockchain or not, because people tend to apply blockchain everywhere, and it will actually be counterproductive. It will negatively affect the things. So coming to the alternatives, so before going for blockchain, maybe we can see why we are going for blockchain. If we are why can't we develop the solution in the centralized manner? What is missing? So those things we need to clarify. So the possibility of using centralized solution should be thoroughly investigated. That is the first step. Cloud-based solution, we can, if we need only high availability kind of thing, okay, this application should not fail, it should be highly available, maybe we can think of cloud-based solution. If the data between multiple parties using master slave architecture is fine. For example, I have a vendor, but my company is very big. Vendor can log into my site and update or get information. Then if the vendor trusts me, then I can host a centralized database, and even he wants a copy, he can get it mirrored using master slave kind of architecture. And some other places, if ensuring only data integrity I want to ensure, no one tampered the data, then we can go for digital signatures also. Whenever we store a record, we make it signature and keep the private key very secure. So even somebody get hold of the backend database and tamper it, we can identify it. Yeah, it is tampered, because signature we can check it, right? So tamper evidence can come with the digital signature itself. But if we want everything in a mix, then we need blockchain. So that we need to see. So if ensuring data integrity and non-repudiation are the only objectives, digital signatures can be considered. So this way we can see multiple alternatives to blockchain. So in conclusion, every problem is not a blockchain problem. So we need to just see, evaluate the suitability thoroughly. Do we really need blockchain? We need to think about it. Use blockchain only if it is the simplest possible solution. If there is no other solution, then we can consider blockchain. So yeah, that's all from my side. I'm stopping here for question and answer. Any questions?
Sir, I'm Ramchandran again.
Yeah.
In your previous slide, you gave us how to select whether a blockchain is needed or not.
Right, yeah.
Any computer-based thing, we should always have a storage. Without storage, no business or no operations will be happening. Why come that slide is like that? Why are you saying do not need a stored state? Any data has to be stored. Any data has to be stored.
No, your thing is just a see, you are hosting a service. It's a computation service. For example, say it immediately computes and it gives some output. That's it. Take input, compute, then have it. But that is the starting point. Just for completeness, they may have it, but remaining questions still valid, right?
Okay, but yeah. To start with, we are asking that question.
This is to start with, we are asking, but if it is yes, then we are going to the next
in
step.
Any scenario when we are going in for a database system, data has to be stored and it should be retrieved. Maybe it may not be required for longer time. Maybe within 1 year it can get erased, or after 5 years it get it doesn't matter. Sometimes it may be for 10 years. So that is
true. Yeah. Every system actually without storage, yeah, nothing will be much useful. But For completeness, they have added in the original diagram also it is there. Do we need to store state is the first starting point. Just anything else from anyone? Any other question?
I have one question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the previous slide where this when to use blockchain. So if there is no trusted party (TTP),
Okay.
yeah, so still they may not use blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so generally when there is no trusted party, so blockchain can be used. Is it?
Yeah. See, in the original thing, there is a box which says always online trusted party, trusted
Yeah.
third party. Is there always online trusted third party is there? So what we discussed internally is always online trusted third party may not be the case. So we removed that. But if there is a trusted third party, we don't need. We can actually go with trusted third party. But if you think that removal of that trusted third party or the intermediaries can benefit your scenario by, for example, it can be more efficient or it can be less costly. So that kind of scenarios, maybe you can still think of this one. But if trusted third party is your university kind of thing, or RB is there, so then you don't need. If they are hosting the solution, then don't need blockchain.
So what I'm saying is this in this one, if there is no trusted party, and then some cases like there is no trusted party, then this table suggests that don't use blockchain.
No. See, if your trusted parties are there, if all are trusted, yes, then don't use blockchain. If all are trusted, then don't use blockchain. But if you are not trusting, there is no trust, then you need to use blockchain.
No. If you come from this one,
From which one? You can.
first column. Yes, are there multiple writers? No.
Correct. No.
Then critical data need to tamper evident. Then
Okay.
this side, if you come, no means if there is no trusted party. And
No.
tampering-
No. See, if critical data need to be tamper evident, if no means directly it is going to no. Don't use blockchain.
Okay.
The no will directly go to don't use blockchain.
Okay. Maybe.
For the no, there is no other path. Actually, it will not go in this direction. If there is no, it will directly go because there is one party. Here, what it means, there is no multiple writer. Mean single writer is there. Data also doesn't need any tamper evidence. Then why do we need to worry about blockchain? Right? We can simply store it in database. That way.
Sir, in your 16th slide, the technical challenges.
Okay.
In that, the last thing, auditability and compliance with private regulations. Generally, if I'm going to use a blockchain, it cannot be audited since it is anonymous and we cannot go back and find out who has done it. Correct?
No. A blockchain is not only Bitcoin kind of thing, right? Blockchain can be used for enterprise use cases also. There it is not anonymous. If it is enterprise blockchain, then
you mean to say like Hyperledger with permission?
Correct. Permission blockchain. Then usually auditability might be needed, right? In an enterprise thing. Bitcoin, I don't know. Whether needed or not.
Okay, you are in the my clarification only. So if I have a permissioned blockchain like Hyperledger or Corda, there if I want to audit, then I should have another one user who can go inside and read what is happening inside. Correct?
Correct. Exactly.
But is it possible to go and see the data for that person? What is the message inside that? Whatever transactions if you and myself are
add more
peer 1 and peer 2, and if a auditor is there, in case of a quality system, if you take ISO 9000, the party one is one company and party two is one company. They both have interacted, and when an ISO auditor comes to review that, he has to go inside and see who has done it, when it was done. In that scenario, will this be useful? Understand what point I'm telling?
Yes, yes. Okay. Okay, see, so while designing the use case itself, we should decide our auditor. So maybe if we know the auditor or auditor role, we should decide. Even if we don't know who will be the auditor, if we know the auditor role, then we can imaginarily also create a auditor keys and all. Means auditor role is there, so appropriate keys we can generate. If it is a Hyperledger Fabric use case, then we can add that auditor as a one of the participant in the use cases. So whenever we submit any transaction, just like all the parties, the auditor will also a party who will be able to see. But even if it is not immediate, he can, once the auditor is identified, maybe we can say that today the audit will be done by so and so. Some SEBI is doing audit on some kind of trade and things like that, or the share market thing. So we can give the keys to the representative of SEBI. He can log in with the key, or he using that key from our interface. Maybe we can say he can look into the blockchain and see that who had done what kind of transaction. If we take Corda kind of use case, usually it will be shared only with the actual parties, right? Then we have to assume that auditor also part of that transaction. So we need to consider
Give him
opening,
a right.
give him the right, correct, exactly. So that kind of.
Another point you were telling in the technical is, so data archives is not possible. Any data storage, the first question you are saying whether the data has to be stored or not. When it is yes, then you say blockchain is useful. But then you are telling data archive is difficult. Then what is the great thing in going for blockchain? In query efficiency, you are saying data archive is difficult.
Okay, archival means we are okay. See, for database there will be some live data. Correct. So data, even if you take data, we may not need we may need data from 1 year. If you say that your operation purposes, you may need data from 1 year. That data you usually read, write, and things like that. Past data can be moved to archive. Archive in the sense it can be moved to tape, so that you can delete it from your current database. So that database will be lightweight, right? Your queries will be more efficient. So by archival, what I mean is moving data out of the database and keep it in a storage like tapes and other things. So whenever we need some kind of old record retrieval and things like that, only when that is needed, but not needed in a day-to-day basis. So that is what I mean to say by archival. We can remove it from the current active database, but we can keep it in a other secondary storage kind of thing, like our tapes and things like that. So not about storage. So is it still clear now? The archival means it will reduce the live data.
But again, that archival is in a separate location, not in your original original one of your server. It will be in a different server. You mean to say that, so that your space can
be physically you can even have it in the same server, but your database engine will not be affected by that. Your database or the storage, it will not be there in the blocks. So if you are searching for something, your history will not have all these things. You don't have to go to 500 blocks down the line or something like that. It can be in different server also, or in the same server also, but it will not affect your live data.
Current performance,
so live data
current performance of the live data.
Correct. True, exactly. So that is right now a bit of difficult only.
Difficulty. You don't have if you have two servers, how to link? You don't have a method of linking it. That's what you said.
This is about interoperability or archival you are asking?
In case of archivable, I can have two,
No,
three
it is
servers.
not like it is not like 2-3 server problem. It is cutting the data. How to cut the data? If
Okay.
you in database, we can say that okay, previous year's data, up to previous year's data, we can move it to some other archive database, and we can remove from the current live database. Like that, we can cut it because we can from our
Okay, understood,
business
understood. Now,
requirement. Here, it is
my
not possible to cut.
another one specific question. In case of now, we have Oracle or ERP in a manufacturing system where we have a lot of data. And if you want to implement this blockchain, is there any way to transfer the old data inside this and use it? Or again, you have to start from the scratch?
Old data can be migrated, but again, yeah, we have to manually write some scripts to migrate. There is no out of the box method to migrate data. Maybe what we need to do is, if there is some existing data structure in the current legacy application, right, it is running on, so we need to what information we are going to put in the blockchain, we need to decide accordingly. The data structure we need to decide, then we need to query from the existing system, and we need to submit. We need to write a script to submit it to database. So sorry, blockchain. So blockchain will be from scratch only. We will start and write a script to fetch the data from database and push it to blockchain. Like that we need to do. Then we should make it live. So that's what I can think, but there may be other solutions I'm not aware of.
But this is interoperability, it is there, but by means of writing a special software.
No, okay. Interoperability, by that, what I mean is it is between different blockchain application itself. Like Corda is there, Hyperledger Fabric is there, communicating between them, or even two different blockchain applications. How between blockchain application? I'm not talking about here. Interoperability is not between existing the regular
RDBMS,
software.
RDBMS to blockchain.
There we can link it. There are softwares, people can do it, but two different blockchain kind of system, they are unregulated ones. How they can be interoperable? That's where the problem.
Sir, I have a question in 18th slide.
Okay.
Regarding that consensus, if we are using the Hyperledger Fabric, at present it is supporting only one consensus algorithm, that is PBFT. Whether any other thing, if I'm concentrating my research on that, especially particular on consensus part.
It supports Raft, right? PBFT.
Raft order is order part. Raft and Solo is but especially for the consensus part, because if we are going for the permissionless means many algorithms, many consensus algorithms. But for if you go for Hyperledger, only one it is supporting, PBFT and Raft, which is supporting for the orders.
Correct. As you see, in Hyperledger consensus is a tricky one actually. Tricky in the sense, yes. Orderer part they do Raft, but overall consensus, if you take, Raft will take care of the ordering consensus, and but the commit, if you take the commit, real consensus in my understanding is on the endorsement
PBFT,
rules are there, right? Endorsement
yes.
rules. They so while committing we write rules, right? Whether majority of all the participants or A and B or C, something like that we can write, right? The consensus rules. So that is where it lies.
Sir, and one more thing is on smart contract. Is smart contract? Is it possible to compare one smart contract with another which is related with the security one? Because the existing smart contract they'll use for if you take electronic health records.
Okay.
Many of them have their own script, own smart contract. If I would like to write a new one, I have to compare their smart contract with my one. Otherwise, any other thing.
Compare in the sense feature wise or security wise, maybe then I don't know anything specific for smart contract. Maybe we have to see what all the features supported, security wise, it's a challenging one only. We need to use some methods like static analysis and things like that. Or any specific comparison you are thinking of? Because comparison should be done based on some parameters, right? Security parameters, efficiency, something, right? Or
Because
even
as of now, I have seen that papers which is related with the Hyperledger. The comparison is not related with the smart contract. They're comparing that based upon the transactions, performance,
right.
like throughput and latency. Only this 3 words,
Correct.
it will be repeated.
So they usually assume that there is some kind of smart contract, maybe minimal one, which will not even write. What to say? There will be the same keys if you are updating to multiple transactions. That itself will create some bottleneck, right? If we run initially when we set up and run performance test, several tests will fail actually. Several updates will fail because all we try to update in the same state. So multiple times if we try to update the state, the failure will happen. So we can, if we are updating every time different states, then it will be more faster. So they have a standard smart contract for performance testing. But if we want, we can try with different smart contracts if you want to really compare. It depends upon what we are comparing. Whether we want to compare the platform's efficiency, then we can choose a simple smart contract which can perform well. But if you want to really compare our smart contract with another smart contract, then the platform we can keep it constant. We can plug our smart contract once and push hundreds of transactions. Then once we plug the other smart contract and push hundreds of transactions and see how much throughput latency both are giving, like that.
Okay, sir. Sir, on 19th slide,
Okay.
if I'm using electronic health records of different hospitals, they are the part of that. It is not of a single organization. They will be tampered, and then whether I have to go for the private or public permission.
See, electronic health record. So here the cleaning, the writing will be done by hospitals and people, right? So permission will be the one. But
Yes.
who will see, whether the hospital people or only the user has to see? Then we can go with private. But anyone can look into it. Then maybe public. We need to go for a public mode. But if it is within the ecosystem, within the hospitals, then private permission blockchain will be better.
Okay, so if it's a multiple hospitals with multiple doctors and patients, then I have to go for public.
No, still private permission only, because every hospital will onboard, right? Initially, we will be giving keys to them.
Yes.
So that way, still we can consider private permission blockchain.
So how we can trust them?
Trust the parties, means hospital and
Yes, a hospital party. Yes, sir.
Okay, so trust means what to say, tampering the data or leaking the data. See, because
Leaking, sir, especially.
leaking we can't do with blockchain. See, we can't avoid any kind of leak using blockchain. But if you want to ensure the integrity, like my health record has something in it, no one should be able to change it. If I have some specific disease, no one should be able to change that one, right? That blockchain can ensure. But somebody leaks it, it can't stop.
Confidentiality, sir. The confidentiality is missing.
That is missing. Correct. Then it's hard to achieve only. Yeah, because we are sharing, right? It's shared between multiple parties. So confidentiality, we need to take additional measures and all. See, what we can do is some data, if you want to share only with trusted people, even within the network, a subset of people, then we can think of some kind of workaround, like encrypting with a set of key. Encrypting with some key which people can access, these people only can access, something like that. But otherwise, no straightforward solution. Actually, we are giving away details to multiple people now.
Okay. Sir, is it secure to put the data in any cloud platform? Because every block it will not hold the huge information.
A cloud
We'll have to
platform
go
in the
for
sense,
because
means blockchain in
IPFS
cloud.
is yes, sir.
Right. IPFS kind of thing. Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay. Yeah, IPFS also we can consider. In the case of IPFS, a high availability will be there. So data is we can, by using hash only, they are identifying the data, right? So there won't be
Yes,
any
sir. Yes,
duplications, something like that they are telling.
yes, sir.
I didn't really think about comparing and contrasting between that and this one. Yeah, I, I don't have any idea right now how it will be. What will be the advantages of IPFS and blockchain, that comparison?
Okay, okay.
Any other questions from anyone?
Sir, how can we increase the throughputs in these? Can you suggest that?
Increasing throughput is a tricky thing only, but because if you see even IBM's experiments and all, they try to have a huge hardware and all, massive hardware, and try to improve. But what we can think of is, if you take Hyperledger Fabric, if the transactions are not touching the same states, then it is little faster. Means the if you are if multiple transactions are updating my record, okay, my record on the same data, then we need to serialize them. They can sequentially only they can be processed. Parallelly we can't process. But if multiple transactions are touching different states, then all can be processed in parallel. So that way we can improve the performance. So what I would suggest is to increase the throughput. One thing is, we can design the data structure so that it is not a single unit or like that. Maybe as much as possible we can independently update the data. That is one thing.
Okay then. Sir,
While designing the data structure, try to design independent independent updates, so independent fields can be updated without actually fetching the entire data. If you have any more any specific doubts on this, maybe I can try to answer. Any other questions, anyone?
Sir, is there any use case on the edge intelligence devices? Use of
IoT
blockchain.
related,
IoT, yes.
IoT devices.
Yes.
People are actually IoT devices wise. The one challenge is IoT device at the end devices cannot run blockchain peer and things like that. They may be very small or very in what to say, the computation power is very low, right, for end devices. So usually blockchain people suggest in the router or what aggregates all the information from the IoT devices. So between them, some information need to be shared. Maybe they can act as the peer, and they can share information in a if we what to say, in secure way. So that way we can think, but it depends upon what exactly we want to achieve using those devices. Maybe whether it is very critical or not, that way we can think of. I don't have any straightforward answer for that. Maybe if we know the problem exactly, what it is used for, or something like that, we can think of that. But we can see so many papers or references in the internet also related to that. IoT, blockchain and IoT.
So Hyperledger Sawtooth or the Hyperledger Fabric, both are the same, or some difference are between them?
They are different. Hyperledger Fabric and Sawtooth are different, and they originated from different companies also. I don't have much idea about Sawtooth. I think it's from Intel, I suppose, and this one from Hyperledger Fabric. Hyperledger Fabric originated from IBM, but all are under the Hyperledger umbrella, Linux Foundation. But they are different. That's what I know. But exact think about Sawtooth, I don't know much about Sawtooth.
Okay, sir.
Any questions from anyone? I think if there is no further question, maybe we can close the call, right? Kunberg, sir?
Yeah, if there is no question, then we can, madam.